Welcome to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get polarized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento, an activist street fighter with earned degrees in law enforcement, theology, and philosophy. Listen and watch every weekday at 2 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and TrentoVision.com. Now, let's take a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
You know, every once in a while, you get one of those days. Sometimes things are just rolling along, and every once in a while, there's emails that come into your email box. And in the work that we do here, trying to save the world, we get all kinds of emails. But when you get the kind of email I got a little earlier today, it could be extremely depressing and certainly disappointing. But for the fact that we know this kind of stuff is coming, but for the fact that we know the difficult days we are in, I'm not surprised, but it's still not an easy email to read. I'll read it to you. Not going to read any names or any of that, but I was asked to be the guest speaker in October in Florida at a particular city, and the main speaker at a pro-American, pro-military event honoring the United States military, honoring our men and women of all branches who have served and who are serving, and everything was set. I was going to go be their speaker. I do a lot of speaking here and there and everywhere. But I got this email just this morning. And it says, I totally understand. This is where we are at. So the organizers wrote me an email and said, this is where we are at. We have attempted to invite current military personnel, and they have declined. They tell me that they were ordered to decline, basically because Tom Trento is the speaker of the event. And their superiors told them that any event that I am at, where there's the perception of anything anti-Muslim, anyone in the United States military is not allowed to be at. This is the first time that it was on. This response has been forthcoming. Although we want to hear your presentation very much, we hope you would come to one of our other meetings and all of that. If we are to get any active military to be part of the program, and this is their fourth type event doing this, it would be far better for us to forego your presentation at this time. That means, is it possible for us to uninvite you, Tom Trento? So I called the people up, and I had done some speaking for them, and I said, look, and they were devastated. I mean, there were people that are with us, and they were specifically told by enlisted military folks that the superior officer said they cannot participate in an event where I am there, or there's a perceived sense of anything anti-Muslim. Nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, here on the 21st of September in beautiful Boca Raton, a little bit past the top of the hour, nowadays, and I work for everyone the other day out of Reliance of the Traveler, any comment that any Muslim perceives as upsetting or disturbing to them is becoming something considered anti-Muslim. This is a extremely dangerous precedent, and we're seeing it now just rocketing all over the United States, and we see it right now in me being asked to forego my presentation. It was an interesting way to ask me not to be there. But again, this is not that surprising. I was also asked to speak at the Republican National Convention at a side event honoring the military, and I was asked if the United West would actually help organize the event. And we said sure. And then as soon as we put out our first piece of promotional material promoting this event at the RNC back in Tampa, I got a phone call from some elected officials' offices in tears, literally in tears, friends of ours, saying we have to ask you to not participate. We can't have your organization or you participating. And basically, we have some guests here that understand this very well. The folks, the Team B2 folks, the 19 authors of Sharia the Threat, we're all running into this. This is coming out of the White House. But you know what? We'll be there this week. Tomorrow, on Saturday, we leave to go to the United Nations. And right after, we spent a little time welcoming Mr. Morsi, the president of Egypt, Muslim brother, to the United States. We will go to Washington, D.C. and have a little conversation with our president about this, the way he's handling Islamic Sharia dimitude. Good term, dimitude. So it's one of those days, but you know what? We press on, we move forward. We understand the principles this great country were founded on, and great men and women who will continue with their lives, their fortunes, and their honors to make sure this stuff moves forward, the good stuff. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are very fortunate people. Hang on. Why don't you just tell them what you need, and we'll get that done. There we go. If you're enjoying the video part of the show on TrentoVision.tv, you're not enjoying it as much as we are, because about 30 seconds before we went on the air, there was no video. Right outside our massive studios here in Boca Raton, Florida, there's a gigantic, what's that thing called that blew up? Transformer. And about an hour before we got here, the transformer blew up, knocked the internet out, but the engineers are duct taping everything together right now, so you have the privilege of watching and listening. You can listen on iHeartRadio. You can listen on 1470 on the AM band in South Florida. There's a whole bunch of ways. And if you miss it, and we know many people do because it's the middle of the day, they go to TrentoVision.tv afterwards and watch the archive piece. Pretty simple. So we got all kinds of stuff going on. As you know, the show is dedicated to educating Americans on national security issues so that you can intelligently vote on November 6th, 46 days from today. If you don't know what intelligent means, it means to defeat President Obama, okay? The jury is in. He has failed on so many levels. But our sector of the world, national security in Israel, he's failed miserably, folks. And this show is an expose on the reasons why it makes sense to adopt our position and find a new president. And we have one in Mitt Romney, who has a dedication to making sure the errors committed by this administration do not occur next time. So, and one of the areas that we want to talk about today, and bring in our two very good friends, that camera ready to bring these guys on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna introduce guys. You can look into that camera right there. On camera left, we have Joe Sabag. Joe's an attorney here in Boca Raton, Florida, and the head of Zionist. You Zionist, you! Oh my God, a Zionist organization of America, the Florida chapter. And to his left, you're right on the screen, is our good friend, Dr. Boston, right? Is it Boston? It's Dr. Andy Bostom with an M, ladies and gentlemen, not with a N. Visiting us from the beautiful state of Rhode Island. How is it up there?
Beautiful.
You got to move up a little. You got to get closer.
It's beautiful. Fall is beginning.
All right, and Joe, you want to say hello to everybody? And
howdy.
Okay, why don't you take 30 seconds each? You guys got to get very close. You got to kiss the mic almost.
Yeah, there you go.
Joe, why don't you take 30 seconds, introduce yourself, then Andy will introduce you, then we'll get into these stuff here.
Sure. Tom, thanks for having me. Good afternoon to the entire audience. It's a pleasure to be here. Tom invited me, come share a little bit of information, the issues that we're working on at the Zionist Organization of America. Happy to share some of those details. Of course, Tom, I certainly can't go as far as you can in sharing personal opinions. We're a 501c3 nonprofit entity, and that means I have to stay within certain parameters. But to the extent that we're discussing national security interests and things that matter to this audience, it's always a pleasure to be with friends like you and
So you're not going to
Dr.
say, "God damn America," God, like Reverend Wright? Like,
No, no, certainly not.
Okay, you stay on that side of the table, I'll stay on this side of the table. Andy Bostom.
Thanks for having me here, Tom, and it's great to be down with Joe as well. My background is really in medicine, but post 9/11, I've now just completed my third book, which is about to come out. It's called Sharia versus Freedom, pretty straightforward title. The first book was called The Legacy of Jihad, the second book, The Legacy of Islamic Anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, my head is filled with many details about these subject areas.
Dr. Bostom writes these little pamphlets. They're about 3 or 4 pages with a bunch of cartoons in them. His books are about 1,000 pages a piece, ladies and gentlemen. They're treatises, basically. I don't know how you... Nobody...
With not a single picture in them.
Yeah, no pictures, all these words. It's about, it's 3-point font, and Andy's with us, Team B, on all our emails every day, and we're all doing like a graduate degree in whatever he's talking about as he sends all this material. So I'm really privileged, guys. You're on Trento Vision here. We're very thankful you're in studio. We could have Skyped you in, but it's better to see you and touch you, Hey. All right, well, the big question, and I promoted you guys as having the answer to that question that's driving everybody crazy in the United States of America. Why do Jewish people only vote Democratic? What is going on? Help me out, guys.
Well, I'll go first. First of all, Jewish people don't only vote Democratic.
You're kidding me. Really? Okay.
As we understand from 2008, there were a 22% minority that did vote Republican. At least that's what the exit polling indicated, and it's a very popular time right now to be polling Jewish communities around the country. In fact, there was a major poll that was released yesterday by AJC, American Jewish Committee, which specifically polled Jewish people here in Florida. That poll indicated that approximately 30% of the Jewish community will not be voting for President Obama.
How many?
They said approximately 30% will not. Now, the sampling size was relatively small. I understand that they sampled a population of 250, and that they didn't necessarily reveal the exact parameters of how the polling was conducted. You understand, of course, what time of day they conduct those polls. Are they contacting on a landline versus cell phones, and so on and so forth. Those things all really affect who you're in contact with and what the likely responses are. So at this point, the question is whether or not there's going to be some kind of a major shift. We understand that a number of groups have been targeting the community. I'm sure a lot of people here in South Florida have seen the billboards alongside I-95 that say Obama oy vey. Some of us have had...
Wait. For the viewing and listening audience, say that again clearly.
Billboards
Yes,
alongside...
big billboards on the side of the road.
Can't miss them.
And what do they say?
They say Obama oy vey.
Obama oy vey. Okay.
Yeah.
Not oy vey is me, or just just oy vey?
What's the other one? Wait, what's the other one? Oy vey what?
Oy vey is me, so with more emphasis.
Now, what is, for the non-Jewish listeners, and we have a few of those, what does oy vey mean? I use it all the time. What does it really mean? Literally?
It's an exclamation of despair,
Better said with a hand on the head.
Oh, okay. And the population of this area where we're broadcasting of Jewish people is something like about 500,000 people, isn't it?
About 760,000.
In the state?
No, that's in the state, yeah, but of course most of those folks are concentrated in the Tri-County area.
So Dade County, Broward, and Palm Beach, how many Jewish people?
About 700,000.
Wow, that's huge. And a couple sprinkled out in the panhandle somewhere, you know. All right, so you gave us interesting facts and figures as to what's going on.
If you're a Jewish person in Florida, there's no shortage of folks who want to talk to you about how you vote on November 6th. There's no question about it. You've probably received plenty of things in the mail, a few knocks on the door, and on your way to work, you're definitely seeing some billboards. There's no question.
But my question, Andy, isn't what is occurring. My question is, why is it occurring? Why do Jewish people primarily, historically, vote Democratic? And this is a 1-hour show with no commercials. I only got like a minute or two for you to help us out understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the political orientation of Jews has been...
And you're both Jewish, I should make
Yes.
that very clear for the audience.
Has been towards the left for a long time, certainly dating back to the Roosevelt era, who's given, frankly, undue credit for his role in the Holocaust. It's a very mixed role at best. But regardless, Jews have gravitated towards quote-unquote social justice. And for many Jews who, frankly, have little interest in the religious aspects of Judaism or in Jewish culture, this progressive ideology is their religion, and for better or for worse, it's best encapsulated by the Democratic Party. So they are religiously attached to the Democratic Party.
Let me jump on that. That's a very interesting point. Are you an epidemiologist? Is that?
Epidemiologist and general internist.
Okay, so you're a researcher. You look at data, all of that. Do you see, and this would not be scientific at this point, more anecdotal or personal, do you see a correlation between those Jews who do not believe in the Bible, or do not believe in Hashem being a real person, a vital, real God, almost in a Christian sense, where there's a real God, whereas I've seen observant Jews have a real belief in a real God? Do you see a correlation between the less belief in a real God, the more liberal, the more democratic?
I think that association is there. Again, as with so many associations, it's hardly uniform, but clearly, yes, I would say the preponderance of people that have less belief in God, and certainly are less orthodox even in their rituals, would gravitate towards the left.
Joe, let me ask you this.
I think that Andy's touching on an important issue, and essentially the issue is, what is the meaning of Jewish? What is the meaning of being Jewish? Is it a matter of faith, or is it a set of social values that we go out and pursue? There's a lack of clarity to that question, and of course it's an entirely subjective thing. For some people it does mean going out and taking on social justice and those types of agendas, and for other people, as you said, it's faith in Hashem and understanding that the values that come directly from the Torah are more definitive of what our purpose is.
All right.
Can you explain what social justice is? Because the terminology sounds, very nice, but it has some very socialistic.
Yeah, that's Mark in the background. It wasn't coming in real loudly, but the question is for the viewers and listeners: what is social justice from a Jewish perspective? What does that mean?
Well, look, it's up to every person to define it, but we understand that particularly the progressive movements of Judaism have given a very liberal definition to this. It has a Hebrew term that they've kind of co-opted to use as a religious, theological parallel, and that expression is tikkun olam, repairing the world. Social justice, of course, I would say, as defined by many of those folks, tends to be a direct correlation with whatever you would find on the liberal end of the progressive platform. And generally it's a code word.
Okay, well, I want to get into the liberal end of the progressive platform in a second, but right now we've got about 20 after the hour. Tom Trento Vision. It is the 21st of September, 46 days, ladies and gentlemen, to determination of Western civilization in a very real sense. I mean, that's not said lightly. This election is so critically important. We will take calls for our two great guys here, Dr. Bostom and Dr. Sabag. I just made you Sabag. I just made you a doctor, okay? But you have a doctorate. You have a Juris doctorate.
Generally, it doesn't give.
I know. But on this show, we can call you anything we want.
Go
okay?
for it.
If you want to talk to these guys, it's 888-565-1470. 888-565-1470. Anywhere in the United States, you can call in toll free. We'll let you talk, ask anything you want. But now, what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a dive into the psyche of the Jewish mindset, particularly in these critical days before the election. Not just for understanding the Jewish vote, but it's very it's also a critically important fact, and we've seen President Obama all over South Florida, that the liberal Jews write gigantic checks for the Democrat Party, and they fund the Obama operation. And many of those people are starting to back off a little bit, writing those big checks. Here's a question to both of you: if we have this kind of leftist ideology in the Jewish world of social justice, all of that, and we have a president that meets those needs by his social programs, his socialistic programs. I debated someone the other night, a rabbi, a couple of nights ago, and he actually stated on air that he agrees to forms of socialism. And he said, well, look at the school system, and he identified the school system as a form of socialism. The Jews that are with Obama there, where does their Zionism, you run a Zionist organization, where does their Zionism, is there a red line where they go, okay, I'm for social justice until Zionism is violated? When does a Jew say, enough is enough, I got to support the land of my forefathers?
Well, look, it's incorrect to assume that all Jews are Zionists. And outside of that category, you have two primary other categories. One would be non-Zionists, folks who just simply don't subscribe to the vision of Israel as being a place that Jewish people are entitled to religiously, historically, legally, morally, and so on. And then you have anti-Zionists. Unfortunately, we understand that the Jew still makes the best anti-Semite. Really, anti-Zionist is just a nice way of saying an anti-Semite. And so, regarding these other two classifications, a lot of the progressive folks tend to fit into the non-Zionist category. Some of them do fit into the anti-Zionist category. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yeah, no, we hear you well.
So, how do they resolve the question of support for Israel and Jewish identity?
Yeah, that's the question. How does that happen?
How does that happen? It's a difficult thing. Look, if you go around and you talk to Jewish people about Israel, by and large they would say to you, well, we support this idea of a two-state solution. Now, what has changed? If you ask those folks, why do you support that?
Explain to the listeners and viewers what a two-state solution, what that means.
Well, primary...
Solution to what?
Right, well, the solution to the Arab war against Israel, as I would frame the issue.
The jihad. Jihad, okay.
Jihad.
Stop the jihad by a two-state solution.
Right.
What is that?
So, look, very central to the Israel experience these days, what's on the mind of a lot of folks who are concerned about Israel is how do we resolve the situation that Israel faces. They, of course, don't look at it as a matter of jihad. They understand this as being a problem with land ownership and a lack of statehood for the part of the Palestinian Arab people. If you ask most Jewish persons, well, why do you support this idea of a two-state solution, basically carving out a very large section of central Israel and
Judea, Samaria, just a whole set. It would be like Palm Beach, Broward, Dade. Okay, we're gonna take all of that and give it to somebody else.
Yeah. Now, of course, there are other aspects to it. There are some folks who don't want to call it Judea and Samaria. They want to call it the West Bank, because frankly, it looks absolutely ridiculous to go around and argue that the Jew has no right to be in Judea. I mean, that would be like arguing that the Arab has no right to be in Arabia. It's complete nonsense. So they've tried to give it another name. But the point is, if you ask most Jewish American persons who are in support of that idea, why do you support that idea, they would say, well, look, the Jews and the Arabs, they're kind of like kids who can't get along. And so what do? You separate them. You give each one a slice of the pie, and presumably everybody will be happy and go on in their own way. Now, what has changed? That used to be also the perspective that we saw coming from U.S. administrations, supporting the idea of a peace process and supporting the idea of a two-state solution for the sake of actually achieving some kind of a peace on that basis. President Obama and the Obama administration, on the other hand, have shifted gears, and we now hear talk about occupation and territorial illegitimacy. This is what's coming directly from the Obama administration.
Well,
I mean, these are very specific terms that have been used by the president himself.
Occupation and what else?
Territorial illegitimacy. The expression illegitimate.
But let's clarify further. That means that doesn't refer to Arab-Muslim occupation of Judea Samaria. That refers to Israeli Jewish settlements in Judea Samaria. So we have to sort of sift our way through this Orwellian terminology.
Well, it's a polite way of saying Israel stole the land, it doesn't belong to them, and now they got to give it back. Now, that's completely contrary to fact. It's contrary to history. It's contrary to international law. However, this is really a narrative that's come particularly from the Arab-Muslim world, and it's indicative of that perspective. And the unfortunate thing is that we've heard President Obama made use of these expressions in the Cairo speech. We've heard Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, make repeated use of the expressions occupation and illegitimacy. Susan Rice has very famously made these statements at the United Nations. This is very hurtful terminology. So while on one hand, these folks may be advocating a two-state solution and saying, well, we're completely in line with your policies, I mean, these are your stated goals too, we understand that they're approaching it from a completely different angle. They support these ideas for a very different reason.
Well, all you have to do, as we do, is look into their backgrounds, their educational backgrounds, their associations. And the cabal that's in the White House right now has been historically a pro-Palestinian group of people, and they happen to be, they won the prize, they won the White House, and you can't just say, okay, Rashid Khalidi, come on and take over.
Speaking of Rashid Khalidi, Tom, I mean, let's have the LA Times release that video of Obama at the birthday bash for Rashid Khalidi, where at least on the program was a dance troupe who is infamous for performing sort of a play act version celebrating jihad martyrdom. So let's see what took place at that event in light of the recently released Romney video via Mother Jones, etc.
And who is Rashid Khalidi?
Rashid Khalidi was a mouthpiece for the Palestinian Liberation Organization and a sort of pseudo-academic at Columbia University and a mentor to Barack Obama.
And how is he related to Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood?
No relationship. Rashid Khalidi?
He's thinking of Tariq Ramadan, I think.
Somebody else. A couple of things. There's a lot of stuff going on here. We want to make sure everybody understands this. We're today, folks, on Trento Vision. Tom Trento, your host, with our team here. We got a full house today. We got Mark, who's got all the electronics going. Michael's on the camera. CJ's in there. We have a guest, an unknown guest, sitting in over there quietly. And then we have a couple of on-camera guests. Our title for today's show is, the Jews in Florida. What's going on in the United States? What's happening with my brothers and sisters out there? I did a video a few months ago. What will it take? And I appealed to Jewish people. What will it take before you say, you know what? I've got to err on the side of Israel as opposed to social programs with Obama. It's floating around out there. But the videotape you're talking about, shot 2003.
2002.
Yeah, the LA Times is sitting on it. LA Times is owned by a very wealthy Jewish guy, which is amazing. You can let the thing go. And an email came out today, and I started reading it as fact. Did you see that? It was a satirical email. They found the script, and somebody just wrote all stuff like, what you would think was being said there, and then they said, We don't know if this is, we don't know it's not true. Prove that it's not true, release the tape. Very interesting. But for the sake of our audience, and for the sake of the listeners and viewers, I think we have somebody on hold. I'm going to take a question for you guys. You ready for a tough Florida audience here? Yes, caller, what's your name?
This is Roger.
Roger, how are you? You're with Joe and Dr. Bostom. How are you today, and what's your question?
I'm doing fine, okay. I'd like to get their opinion, okay. We're talking about the two-state solution. Okay, the Arabs have rejected every offer for land to provide a two-state solution that the Jews have ever made. So my question is that assuming that they were able to come up with a suitable offer for land to create a two-state solution, do they actually believe that it would solve the problem and create a peace? Personally, I don't think so, and I was curious to know what the experts think on that subject.
All right, before they answer, let me throw in an additional piece for Roger. Thanks, Roger, and we'll keep listening to the show. Tell your friends.
Great show, Tom. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I thank you for all your patriotic work. Okay, we need more people like you out there. We truly do.
No problem, and I hope I get more speaking engagements that I have to forego myself from. So, the 2005 little Gush Katif, a little Gaza stuff, factor that in, that this whole thing of trading land for peace actually occurred. Dr. Bostom, go ahead, Andy.
It's chimerical. I mean, it has absolutely nothing to do with reality. This is a jihad. As a document that I present in my forthcoming book, there was a fatwa issued by Al-Azhar University in January. Actually, there were two in January of 1956. So this is 9 months before the Sinai War. Israel at that time exists as the rump state of the 1949 armistice borders. Gaza is in complete control of Egypt. Judea Samaria in complete control of Jordan. The fatwa is very clear, and it's coming from, again, the Vatican of Sunni Islam. It's not from some quote-unquote radical organization. Hamas doesn't exist. The PLO doesn't even exist.
This is 1956
January. One fatwa is from the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar University. The other is from the heads of all the major Sunni Islamic schools. They are in concordance that jihad to annihilate the Jews of their rump state is an obligation of the entire global Muslim Ummah, and then they invoke some sort of conspiratorial Jew hatred from rationalize the inveterate characteristics of the Jews. And again, this is the doctrinal driving force of an annihilationist jihad that has absolutely nothing to do with any of the territories in Judea, Samaria, or Gaza. So I just don't see how any of these so-called peace plans have any relevance or any currency within the Islamic world.
And for the viewing and listening audience, that analysis, if that doesn't convince you that land for peace is really nonsensical, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 30s and 40s, a gentleman from Austria by the name of Adolf Hitler couldn't care less about land or anything. His goal was to exterminate Jews wherever they were, and he joined up with, the religious leader of Jerusalem, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Very difficult for me to comprehend. Religious leader joining in genocide. Those two things don't seem to mix, unless Islam is not necessarily a religion initially. And also Muslim Brotherhood got involved in that little soiree. So Israel really didn't even have a homeland technically during the 40s, yet there was an effort worldwide to kill all the Jews.
Oh, and Tom, let me just sort of step back even before that. Before Hitler came to power, even before he wrote Mein Kampf in prison, the Mufti was fomenting annihilationist jihadist attacks on the Yishuv, on the pre-Israeli Palestinian Jewish population, on a purely Islamic basis. Now, it's not to say that he didn't admire and expand his repertoire of hatred vis-a-vis his contact with the Nazis, and he moved to Europe.
The Mufti did.
Yeah, the
Jerusalem.
Mufti did.
Mufti means a big religious leader. Good enough for our audience.
But he had enough of his own material, so to speak, before his interaction with Hitler.
Yep. All right, well, here's what I want you guys to, I want you to take a look, a little piece of video. You've seen it 100 times, but it's always great to watch it once again, because it fits right in exactly with what we're talking about, the precedent that's being set by this administration, and the obligation that Jewish people have to responsibly, intelligently vote on 46 days from today. And callers, who's ever on the line, just hang on. We'll get to you shortly. But I want these guys to take a look at this little piece of information here. I wouldn't even set it up. You'll recognize it.
The matter requires a two-thirds vote in the affirmative. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the... Let me do that again. All of those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. I guess.
And then you gotta let them do what they're gonna do.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The Muslim guy jumping up and down saying, no way, no way.
He was right, though. I mean,
it was right. He was right. For the listening audience who doesn't have the privilege of seeing what we just put on the air, we're playing once again from the DNC, Democratic National Convention, a little wonderful piece of video where they had to have a floor vote to reinstate God and what else?
Jerusalem is the capital of Israel.
And Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Now, where were, Joe, where were you when you first saw that piece of video?
I was watching it live. I was at my office, and we certainly had taken notice of the fact that very important language had been removed, and we received notice that it was going to be put to a floor vote and would be broadcast live. So we made sure that we were watching. A couple thoughts. First of all, that situation, it really forces the issue, the fact that Jewish people need to become independent-minded. They need to become issue-oriented voters who take the time to really discover the facts, all of the circumstances for themselves, and then make up their minds on the basis of a totality of information. And that's not happening at this point. And I don't think that the Jews are the only ones who suffer from this idea of just looking at the labels and making decisions based on stereotypes. But the percentages of Jews who do that, it happens to be disproportionately high. The second thing we need to understand is that there was very important language that was removed that still was not reinserted as a part of that process, particularly rejection of the idea that Israel should be forced to negotiate with Hamas. That existed in the platform previous back in 2008. So what's to be suggested from that? Is Hamas now a legitimate negotiating partner? Andy can talk to us at length about the type of doctrine that's quoted directly by the Hamas Charter. It's very simple. How do you suggest that Israel should sit down and should be negotiating at the table with a group that openly calls for the genocide of all Jewish people everywhere and the open destruction of Israel? And that's something that still should be upsetting. I mean, the second thing also symbolically, this idea that they were voting on both recognizing God in the platform and Jerusalem.
How crazy.
They go hand in hand, you understand.
How crazy is this?
The symbolic...
We will now bring God back into the party. We will not, it's embarrassing.
I'm surprised there wasn't a third resolution. Well, if we recognize God, we also recognize Allah.
It could be. Well, let's take one call. Madeline, are you with us? Madeline. She's still there? Okay, well, we'll try to find Madeline, bring her back. But we want you to take a look at another little piece of video, because once that fiasco occurred, the attack dog, President Obama's attack dog, feminine.
Dog being a good word, too.
Feminine attack dog was released here in from the
Actually, Miskite would be better.
yeah, I'm being real careful with my words here. The attack dog was released, and here's what she had to say.
That Israel has never had a greater friend than President Obama.
Well, let me ask you this, because I didn't talk to you yesterday, but some of my colleagues did. I spoke with other people close to the president, and they stood by the platform and they said, no, it's not a mistake. But it seems very much a change today, where we see that this has been amended. It's a difference in language between yesterday and today.
No, it's not actually, because President Obama really felt that it was personally important to him to make sure that his personal view that Jerusalem is and always will remain the capital of Israel was reflected in the platform, and that this was directly the result of his personal view. And something as significant as amending the platform during the convention, because it was the president's priority, demonstrates yet again
That kind of stuff.
First she said,
Let me, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you not watching, that was none other than Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is whom, Joe?
she's the DNC chair. She's the chairman
Democratic
of the
National
National Committee.
Committee, and she lives probably not too far from here, huh? Not too far from here.
No, not too far.
Have you butted heads with her?
No. But, look, in a policy sense, what she's suggesting, this idea that Jerusalem is Israel's capital and that's the president's position, I mean, that's contrary to fact and experience, not just in the context of what happened at the Democratic Convention, but beforehand. I want to talk very briefly about a Supreme Court case that came up last November, which was called Zivotofsky versus Clinton. That case involved American citizens who were born in Jerusalem. My father was a member of that plaintiff class. My father
American citizens
born in Jerusalem.
How does that work? How are you?
Well, let me explain.
Okay.
If you look at my father's passport, my father was born in Jerusalem in 1949, yet under country of birth, it does not list Israel. It lists Jerusalem. The issue...
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So, look, in the practical sense, it causes very significant troubles. He travels to other countries. When you show up with an American passport and they start taking down the information off of your passport, it's done with a drop-down menu. Jerusalem is not a country. So when they open up the drop-down menu and they have an anomalous American passport that lists a city instead of a country, they have every reason to think that it's a fraudulent passport. It's caused quite a bit of troubles. In fact, last year my father was detained on virtually every leg of his trip as he tried to travel down to South America and Central America. So the issue has also basically come up on certification of birth and things of that nature. The point is, if you're an American
Excuse
citizen...
me, just lean back a little bit, because that thing is blocking your face. That camera's grabbing you.
Sure.
And look into that, talk into that camera right there, actually.
Okay, so the point is, if you're an American citizen born in Jerusalem, even Western Jerusalem, because keep in mind, my father was born in 49. The Green Line had already been established. The Armistice Line was already there. There should be nothing contentious about being born in Western Jerusalem, yet the American government at this point, particularly the State Department and the executive branch, do not recognize that as having been, at this point, recognized as the capital of Israel or being a part of Israel. So, the bottom line is the case went to the Supreme Court back in November, and the question was whether or not the executive branch was entitled to deny the recognition of Israel as the capital. The White House and the Justice Department tried to invoke political question doctrine. Thankfully, they found the Supreme Court held that it was not subject to the political question doctrine. It was sent back down to the lower courts. Excuse me. And
don't make this too complicated. Make it simple, lawyer man. Okay.
So it's pending resolution. But the bottom line is that the case is going to have to be judged on its merits. And of course, it's completely contradictory to U.S. law. there's a 2002 law signed into effect by President George W. Bush, which basically said Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and things should reflect that. But it's been the opposite policy of the administration, and in fact, they fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. So for Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz to come out and to say that it's President Obama's belief that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, that's something that wasn't just a problem at the convention, but it was also manifest in a major Supreme Court case last November where the president fought against that policy.
Well, Tom, his major counterterrorism advisor, the Obama's counterterrorism czar, refers to Jerusalem, John Brennan, as Al-Quds.
That's right, I remember that, which is the Arabic name for Jerusalem. He actually referred to it as that. I got to call her. We got Madeline back, I guess, right? We have Madeline right there. Madeline, you're on with Joe and Andy. Your question, please.
I don't have a question, Tom. I have more than half dozen additional reasons why the Jews vote for the Democrats.
Okay, give us a couple. Well, you can read your list. Read your list. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that I'm Jewish, so I'm allowed to say all these things.
Okay.
Number one, they're still voting for FDR, whom they should not have voted for in the first place. Number two, as in Fiddler on the Roof, the song is tradition. They regard voting for the Democrats as the tradition handed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. Number three, I hate to tell you this, but most Jews don't care about Israel. Very few are affiliated with synagogues, which may be a good idea, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But most of them don't care that much about Israel, or care not at all. In addition, if you try to talk to them about any issues, they retreat into abortion rights. And if you try to...
Well, let me interrupt you for 1 second. I've had 4 debates now with Alan Bergstein and myself debating liberal Democrats.
I was at one of those.
Okay. At every single debate, when things got tough, when we start putting the screws to the other side on whatever the issue is, it's like the fail-safe move. They go there and they go, we're for women's rights, and they go through this whole litany, and you can sense those in the audience going back with them. It's become sort of a cause celeb, for the Jewish Democrats to hold to an abortion mentality. It's mind-boggling.
When I try to explain to them, you made the same point 12 years ago and 8 years ago when George Bush was running, and Bush was in office for 8 years, and tell me one way in which abortion rights were diminished under 8 years of the conservative George Bush. They can't answer it.
Yeah.
So that's a fake issue as far as I'm concerned, but they retreat to it.
Yep.
Okay, in addition, these supposedly intelligent, well-educated Jews are not informed people. They are stuck on stupid. Hey,
ladies and gentlemen, a Jewish woman is saying this.
Yes, and I am a member of a synagogue, and this is how I see it. This is the truth. Alan Bergstein calls them umbilical cord Democrats, so these people vote from their hearts, not their heads. They do not know the issues. You cannot have a discussion with them about the issues. In addition, they are products of, and so are their children, of the indoctrination that goes on the campuses from the Western professors. Yep. These are, as I think Joe said, not independent thinkers. And when friends of mine say, oh, but she's so intelligent. No, she's not intelligent. She may be a lawyer, he may be a doctor, but they're not intelligent because they cannot think.
All right, Matt, I gotta let you go there because we're getting to the top of the hour, and I want to bring up another subject for our 2 expert guests. But your points are extremely well taken. And a lot of Jewish people are listening to this show right now, and a lot of non-Jewish people. And from my heart as an evangelical Christian, it just seems that at this defining moment in history, there needs to be a unity between people who are Zionists. You know, I identify myself as a Christian Zionist, Christian who believes that Zion, Jerusalem, is the eternal capital given by God and is the historic, geographic, and political capital of Israel. It's not that hard for me to say that. Every one of these people I've debated on a Democrat side, I ask them that, except for Rabbi Barry Silver, he could say that. All the other Democrat leaders can't bring themselves to say Jerusalem is and ought to be the capital. Folks, we need to rally around that flag right now, because we've got a lunatic coming to New York next week who's calling for the destruction of Israel, and he will do that. And if Jews can't rise up themselves to take a stand for their own land, oy vey.
In contrast, Jerusalem has no deep-seated religious meaning to Muslims. It's never mentioned in the Quran. It was never a seat of the early Muslim empires, the so-called caliphates. Other cities have been, such as Baghdad. For heaven's sake, even Istanbul, Constantinople, Cairo had its claim as the center of a caliphate. Jerusalem was a backwater to all the Muslim empires. This is just, if anything, it is part of Islam's virulent supersessionism. You know, in the Quran, Surah 3, verse 67 says, Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian. He was a Muslim. So any claims that Jews or Christians would have to their own patrimony are superseded by Muslim claims. So that's the only way to really think about this. It's a form of denying the patrimony of Jews to real Jews.
Just rewrite history, Joe. You have a thought on that?
Look, the idea of the erasure of the Judaism of Jerusalem, it's not something that should only be insulting and also threatening to Jews. It should be very upsetting and threatening to Christians as well. Of course, you understand that they take bulldozers up onto the Temple Mount, they get rid of First and Second Temple artifacts, and they openly deny the fact that Jerusalem was ever a Jewish city. And if that was the case, of course, and if I were a Christian, essentially that means that the Sermon on the Mount never happened, because if it wasn't a Jewish city, if there was no Holy Temple there, it's not just the denial of Judaism. We have to understand that it's a denial of a central, fundamental aspect of Christian thought and the Christian narrative.
And we're seeing an alliance of these far right, if you will, radical Islamists with the leftist Jews. I mean, we were seeing like 80 to 90%, and I think that was a part of the vote that was happening on that floor too, where you saw that. Do you agree?
Yeah, this unholy alliance between the Sharia-compliant Muslims and the pro-Palestinian leftists.
I've heard it described as the Red-Green Alliance.
The Red-Green. Let me do this. We only have a couple of minutes, and I'm going to have you guys back. This has been a really fascinating conversation. We have people on hold. Sorry we can't get to all the callers today. We only have an hour show. There's no commercial, you know. We'll have to see if we can get another hour in here somehow. But the affairs of the current situation in the Middle East, with this goofy little video that has inflamed Muslims and their sensibilities, we got about a minute. If you guys can each comment on that, Andy.
Yeah, it's clearly just a pretext. It's very clear now. Even the administration is admitting that this was essentially an Al-Qaeda attack in Benghazi. The details are murky and incriminating and infuriating. Libya was a hub for jihadists going off, particularly in the Benghazi and Derna area, jihadists going off and killing American soldiers in Iraq. The whole failed project in Libya, which has empowered more jihadists, is really entirely to be laid at the doorstep of Obama. I think that the issue of this trailer, this 13-minute trailer, which of course was originally attributed to a Jew,
of course,
it's pure pretext. It's another example of the broad-based campaign to impose Islamic blasphemy law.
Joe, 30 seconds, your thought. We've got to wind it up here.
Look, we're living in difficult times, and there's a real lack of moral clarity. I've got a good personal friend, Adam Hasner, who has a saying that he often uses. He says, well, how long will we remain the land of the free if we're no longer the home of the brave? And the point is that it's really our challenge to stand up and to demand moral clarity at this point in time, and that frankly, if it's not something that our leaders want to deliver, then we have to replace them, because only bad things coming down the road if we're going to just sit back and not view this world through a very clear moral lens.
Joe Sabag, we thank you here at Trento Vision. The team thanks you for coming down, taking time out of your day.
Great.
Dr. Andy Bostom. What?
No, I'm an easy person to reach. I just wanted to mention. I can be reached
Yeah.
at Florida@ZOA.org. All you have to do is spell the word out, Florida.
Florida. Andy, you email or anything?
And thanks for having me, Tom. Yeah, I have a website, www.andrewbostom.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fascinating hour. Here's what I'd like you to do. We archive these things at trentovision.tv. We need you to tell all your friends and neighbors who want an insight understanding of the issues in Israel, particularly for Jewish people in South Florida, in this country. Go watch these. Send a link to the archived our show, once we end here, and let everyone listen to this conversation, these guys going through the history, the politics, the geography, all of that. Guys, thank you very much. We got a lot of work to do. We'll have you back. Tom Trento saying goodbye, Trento Vision, for the team. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you in New York. We're coming for you, Morsi. We're coming for you, President Obama. We want to talk to you.
Thanks for tuning in to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Your host, Tom Trento, is an activist street fighter with earned degrees in law enforcement, theology, and philosophy. To reach